Hello everybody, I'm Drew Cashman, one of the coordinators for the Madison Audubon bald eagle nest watch. It's a little bit windy out today and the sun's like right in me, so I don't know how good of a view you have of me, but got a great view of the nest today out in this beautiful weather. The last day of May, it's absolutely beautiful weather, so yeah, I'm excited to give you a little glimpse into what we do at the Nest Watch. As always, post any of your comments or questions down in the comments. I'll try to answer those as much as I can live, and then afterwards, if I'll try to answer the questions that I don't get to as well. It's been a strange season. There's no question with all the stuff with the pandemic. But you know, for me personally, it's been a good time to get out at the nest and kind of forget some of the stuff that's going on and a little bit of normalcy. And I know I've heard from a lot of our volunteers that they've felt that same way as well. It's good to get out into nature and watch these eagles do their thing and feel a little bit as a stress reliever and whatnot. It's just it's been relaxing. It's been a good season overall for us under the circumstances. We've been able to keep going throughout, even with some of the restrictions. It's just we're watching nests either individually or with small pairs, so it really works for what we have to do with social distancing. I wanted to thank a few people before we get started, before I give you a glimpse of the nest and get to view it a little bit more. First, I want to thank our 80+ volunteers. You guys are the best. You've been out there once a week since early February, observing your nest and doing great work there. So thank you. You guys are the best. Without you, we wouldn't have the program we have now. Also want to thank all the landowners that have given us permission to view from their property. Thank you. And in some cases, you guys do double duty where you're viewing the nest and doing observations for us as well as a landowner. So I'm super jealous. I wish that's kind of my dream, is to have a property with a bald eagle nest. Maybe someday, but you guys are super lucky, and there's a lot of pride that you show in having a nest either nearby your property or actually on your property. And then thirdly, I want to thank our partners over at the Wisconsin DNR. They have supported us in everything and really helped us in every which way and protecting the eagles as well. So thank you, everybody over at the DNR. So we've had a really good season overall for our program and also for the eagles. I mean, the eagles have actually done really well this year, which is great. We actually have, as I said, we have 80+ volunteers. We are currently watching or have watched 46 nests in 9 counties in the Wisconsin area, in and around the Dane County area. So that's been great. We've expanded out and hope to expand out even more next season. We have 4 nests that have already fledged, which is awesome. So we have 7 fledglings already out and about at their nests that have already taken that first flight and gone in. We expect a big June. June's usually the big month for fledging, so we'll see a lot more fledge as we get into June. We had 11 nests either fail or inactive for the season, just never got started, or they were a young pair at a nest. A lot of times the young pairs take a couple of times, they'll take a little more than a season to get going and to lay eggs. So we're hopeful for those few new nests that they'll be at it and productive next season. And then we also have 49, including the 2 I'll show you in a minute. We have 49 other eaglets in the nest, getting ready and preparing to fledge, most likely in June, maybe a little bit into July, at early July. So that's exciting. I don't know if you just heard that, but they're already calling. The eaglets are chattering already for us. So we got a great June month. This is my favorite time to view nests. It's just relaxing. The leaves are out, the migrant birds are out, they're chirping, and the eagles are getting ready to fledge, or they have fledged. So it's always an exciting time during that period. As I said, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'll try to answer them as we go. And right now, if you can just bear with me, it might be a little shaky at first, and then we'll get a view of the nest. Let me just search in. Whoop. Let me switch. Okay, here we go. I try to get a little tighter. It's a little bit windy, so you're gonna see a little bit of shakiness. I apologize for that. But you can see at least one of the eaglets right behind that, right in front in the tree. He is got his back to it. You can see him a little bit. These guys, I believe the other one's probably behind that one, laying down in the nest. But hopefully they'll do some stuff while we're out here. Apologize for the wind. It's going to make it a little bit shaky, so don't get car sick here. But these guys are 8 weeks old, and they'll be typical bald eagle fledges between 8 and 12 weeks. So these guys will get going. Typically it's more towards the 10-week period. So these guys, I actually, when I got out here, this guy that's standing up was flapping his wings, getting ready. So they're getting ready. They have their full-on first year plumage. As you can see, they're all the brown with their flight feathers. So they're really full grown, ready to go right now. So at any time they can fledge, but as I said, it's usually around closer to 10 weeks. The females are about 20% bigger than the males, and they tend to take a little bit longer to fledge, a little more weight, bigger wing, that wing of over 7 feet. So it takes them a little bit of time to get going as far as actually getting the nerve to fledge. And then as they go through the process, they will right now what they're going to be doing is really building up their wing strength. You'll see them flapping. Hopefully they'll do that for us as well. So they're flapping their wings, they're hanging out. They might take little mini flights, kind of hop up off the nest and take little mini flights. It's fun to watch them. The first couple times they're like, oh god, this is a little scary. But and then as the second one's doing, they do a lot of sleeping and a lot of whining. Hopefully we'll be able to hear them. I don't know how well you're going to be able to hear them, but they whine a lot. So I'm going to answer a few of the questions as we go. First question is, besides being a young new couple, what are the other reasons for some of the nest fails this season? We've had a couple of instances of storms coming through. We had a lot of rain, and that can be devastating if they get really wet. It can also hamper how they feed them if the adults can't really get back to the nest as well because it's wet. They're trying to act as kind of a umbrella. They might not be getting as fed as well. So that's a couple of the cases where just weather. Other cases can be lead poisoning is one that we had last season happen, and some of the cases we just don't know. It's 1 week you go there and then the next one they're not there. The nest failed, so we're not sure. But most of the time it's weather related or human disturbance related. So that's one thing we want to do, is always keep our distance from the nest, give them their space, because they will abandon the nest if they're disturbed enough. This nest is not near the Wisconsin River, to answer Sherry's question. This is more of a typical nest for this area. This is out in the field, near water and near fishing grounds. But there are a lot of nests on the Wisconsin River, and we do observe a number of those as well. This is a similar, this is our typical nest, especially for Dane County and some of the surrounding counties off the river. There'll be a small stream or lake or pond where they might be able to fish, but it's not going to necessarily be right on a river. Bald eagles are very good at adapting to their environment. There's cases out in Arizona that they're out in the desert. I observed some nests in Colorado while I was out there, and they're out in fields like this one, eating prairie dogs as their main source of food. So they adapt extremely well and can do a number of different food sources. Good. Yeah, okay. I'm going to try to zoom back in a little bit. Let's see if I can get it in for you. Yeah, hold on 1 second. Yeah, my phone is really not cooperating, so I apologize. Let's see here. Okay, so we'll just talk a little bit about what we have going on here. We'll answer the next question. It is typically a bald eagle nest will have between usually 1 or 2. So these guys have 2. That's pretty standard. Rarely, we actually have 3 of our nests with 3, which is pretty rare. And then super ultra rare, they'll occasionally have 4. But that's I have actually never seen a nest with 4 eaglets in it. It's just that would keep that pair extremely busy. All right, yeah, I'm trying to get this zoomed in for you. There you go. All right, that should be better. Let me know in the comments if that's a little bit better. Let's see here. Trying to see as the sun's on my screen, it's really hard. Okay, great. Let's see here. Let's talk a little bit about what these guys are doing right now. I call this the teenage phase of the period. You don't see the adults. One of the adults was perched nearby earlier before I went live, but it's flown off. Most of the time, the adults will just be nearby, or they'll be out hunting. Right now, they don't spend a whole lot of times as those that have teenagers that they tend to be a little squawky and annoying. So these guys are squawking for food. They're a little pushy when an adult gets in the nest. I've seen multiple times where the adult just gets knocked right out of the nest. They're so in a frenzy to get that food that they're bringing to them. So they're loud, and you'll probably hear them squawking from time to time. These guys seem to be a little quiet. Looks like he's using a little bit of the wing, and you might see them flapping a wing. He's kind of tucked behind that branch, but you can see he's lifting up his wing. And doing that. So as I said, they will be working towards fledging. They flap a lot to get those muscles strong and take these short little flights. When they get to the point where they are about to fledge, as you can see, there's a number of branches right off the nest. They will do what's called branching. It's exactly what it sounds like. They will climb out onto that nest. Looks like he's Yeah, he's stretching out a little bit, giving us a little bit of show. I think you can see the second one now. It's kind of right behind that branch. So these guys will get out on the branch and flap their wings, start practicing, and once they get that nerve, they'll take that first flight. Typically a first flight might be a short one, like for instance at this nest, they might take a loop around the nest and come back and perch near the nest tree, or they might head off. There's a number of large trees. They're usually not very graceful flights. And then, you know, they'll take off. The adult continue to feed them. So once, you know, it's not, they fly out and then they're done, you know, the adults are done with them. No, they'll keep with them for a month or two while they learn how to fly, while they learn how to hunt, fish, and really fend for themselves. So it's actually a fun time to, after a nest fledge, to head out to a nest. And I've seen some times where the adults were you know, showing them how to fish and hunt and fly, and it's a great time. They're actually really good good parents. Trying to see, how old is the mom? We're not sure of her age. This nest is this particular nest has been in use for about 6 or 7 years. They actually had another nest nearby that they used. So to guessing, I'd say the female, if it was the same female, within probably in the 10 to 15 year age. But it's hard to tell. Once they reach adulthood, which takes them about 4 or 5 years to get that, you know, customary plumage that we're used to with the bald eagle. You know, then they'll live, usually lucky. You know, their life is they're expected to live about 25 years in the wild. In captivity, they'll live a little bit longer, 30 to 35 years. The pair will stay together as long as both of them are healthy. So, you know, if these guys, you know, we really don't know for sure if it's the same pair every year, but most likely it is. They'll stay together and you know, stay together as long as they are both healthy and successful. So you hear a lot about countries across the country, or nests across the country that you know, the pairs together for 10 plus years or whatever it may be. Let's see here, a little known factoid about these eaglets. This guy these two are full, you know, they have their full grown feathers, and they are actually a little bit longer. Their flight feathers are a little bit longer than adult, and what that is probably to make it a little bit easier for them to fly and to catch thermals while they're still learning how to fly. So I kind of call it's kind of training wheels for flying for them. So they might look a little bit, with those longer flight feathers, they might actually look a little bit bigger than their adults. Famous little story, John James Audubon, which is, you know, what this group is named after, made an error. He thought that, as you can see, yeah, he's giving us a little bit of a show here with the flapping of working at its wings. So he accidentally thought that a first-year bald eagle, probably a female because they're, you know, the bigger bird, he thought it was a completely different species. So you can see that it looks quite a bit different than the adult. Just the plumage, that dark plumage, that dark brown with the dark brown beak, and then, you know, with the flight feathers that are a little bit larger, they might look larger than your standard adult bald eagle. So even, you know, one of the most famous one of the most famous birders of all time made that mistake with identifying it. Bald eagles grow extremely fast. They are one of the fastest growing from, you know, birth to hatch to full size of anything in the animal kingdom. So they're one of the fastest. When they're first hatched, they weigh about 2 ounces. So very small. They're completely dependent on their adults, their parents, to feed them, and then also to incubate them, keep them warm until they get a little bit older and start getting some of those downy, fluffy feathers that keep them warmer. And then at about 8 weeks, so these guys are full grown. A female will weigh, on the 11 or 12 pounds. So you can see that's a big growth of 2 ounces all the way up to 12 pounds. So it's amazing how much each week they progress. And you'll see 1 week where you just barely see them over the nest bowl, and the next week they have grown so much more. So they grow extremely rapidly. At this point, these guys, there's not a whole lot of reason for them to be defended by the adults, but the adults will defend the nest, mostly from other eagles. Other eagles are notorious for preying, especially the younger ones, the subadults in first year, for preying on, the eggs are on the little eaglets. It happens. So they're predominantly, they'll defend that off and work towards that. Let's see here. So we're getting a good view of the eaglets right now. I'm glad. I was a little worried that they were gonna lay down and tuck behind that tree. This period of time, you get a lot of cases with the trees leafing out. This tree is partially dead, so we do get a pretty decent view. Other nests, it's completely gone. So it's a little trying at the end of the season for a lot of our adults, or a lot of our volunteers trying to look into this nest. Just some of the fun stories that I've seen. I've been doing this for over 10 years. I started out volunteering out in Colorado when my family was out there. Moved to New York and actually have another nest watch in the Albany, New York area that's still going, that I founded, and then here in Wisconsin. I'm for those that know me, I have three young boys, and one of the funniest stories was a nest out in New York where Dad came back to drop off some food and was in the nest, and it takes them a little bit of time. They have to poop over the side of the nest because they don't want a lot of poop obviously in the nest, so it takes them a little bit of time to practice. So this poor male, which dad that I can relate to, being pooped on, peed on, whatever, thrown up on, actually got a face full of poop from one of his babies. So, and he took it very well. He just kind of stood there surprised, like, what just happened? So that's a funny story. To answer Joan's question, are the adults in the nest tree or nearby? I haven't seen them. They were out here when I first got here. I haven't seen them. As I said, it's the view's a little constricted, so they could be nearby, and I might not be able to see them, but I haven't seen them. They might be out collecting food or nearby that I just can't see them. So as they go bigger, as I said, there's less and less times that you see them. I don't know if you just heard that. I was talking, but one of them did call out. As I said, they can complain a little bit. Another thing, these are enormous birds. I can remember a couple times where a red-tailed hawk, which you think is a good-sized bird, flew through the area. And I remember one time at a nest that I was viewing in Colorado, Mom did not like that too much, so she took after this poor red tail, and she was massive compared to a red tail. So these guys are very big birds. I call them the B-52s of the bird world. They're large, and it takes them a lot of energy to get off to fly. So what we suggest is you keep your distance, you try not to disturb them. We're viewing the nest from I'm a ways away, viewing it through a scope, through binoculars, just to give them that space, because if you do disturb the nest, especially earlier on, sometimes they do abandon it. And I've heard some stories of nests being abandoned, and none of us want that to happen. And it's exciting to see bald eagles out in the wild, and it's very exciting to see a nest out in the wild, but we just want to keep our space and let them do their thing out in nature. So let's see here if we have any more questions. I'll scroll through a little bit. Let's see here. I'll just talk about a little bit about this nest and what they would be eating. There's a pretty good food source for fish. So they get predominantly fish here, and other birds is another big one. They'll take gulls, ducks and waterfowl are one of their favorites. And then they're probably getting some mammals, squirrels, rabbits, that kind of thing. Not as much here, but they will get some mammals in their diet. And then carrion. That's a very important point. They are scavengers, and because of that, eagles are susceptible to poisoning like lead and other things. So even if they get a small piece of a shrapnel from a bullet or whatnot, or from a lead leader from a fish that maybe the fish swallowed and then they ate the fish, it can really do a lot of harm to them, and in a lot of cases it can kill them. So I highly suggest if you are a hunter, if you are a fisherman, if you can go. I know it's a little bit more expensive, but if you can go lead free, it's great because it helps protect these guys. And I've talked to a number of rehabbers, and that's a lot of what they see is eagles coming in with food with lead poisoning. So if they do have mammals or scavenging on either roadkill or animals that were shot, it can be dangerous with the lead poisoning. So a big part of their diet is carrion, which is the decomposing meats. I've gotten this question a lot. It's kind of more folklore than anything. Will an eagle take my small dog or cat if it's out? I'm not saying it's never happened. It's probably happened in some cases, but I think it's probably ultra rare. If you do, there's been cases on some of the the nest cams that they've pulled in. You've seen cats go in there, but most likely that's a roadkill that they scavenged, and then they brought back to the nest. It's very rare that they would go after your dog or cats. Just to let you know, a load capacity for them to fly is about half their body weight is what they can carry. So the females can carry about 6 pounds, and a male can carry about 5 pounds. The males usually about 9 to 10 pounds. Females are about 11 to 12 pounds. So they can't carry a whole lot. Most of it is, it's the carrion. So if they are, taking mammals, larger mammals, it's because they have, they've decomposed, and they've, the weight has gone down with the, decomposing. They don't really have, the capacity to carry a live baby deer or anything like that. It'd just be too heavy for them. I've seen a number of times. I saw one a couple weeks ago. I was actually out at a nest on the Wisconsin, and the male caught an enormous fish, and was really struggling with it. It had to be, over his load capacity. Barely got it back to a branch. He ate most of it before he actually brought it back to the babies, because it was just so large. He couldn't get it back to the nest. So that was that's just to show you how they can't carry a whole lot, and a large fish will weigh them down. So if there's any more questions, let me know. Yeah, they as Jeannie said, they wouldn't probably not take a pet cat, but again, I wouldn't leave your pets out there unattended. There's some other ones. Probably the best example is, if your cat is outside, there's a number of predators that can eat it. Great horned owls is one that comes to mind. Some of the smaller dog, like coyotes and stuff like that might take them, but I wouldn't take the chance, but I think it would probably be a pretty rare instance where they where they take a pet like that. Yeah, Katrina, who's one of our volunteers for this nest, is on the other side. I think I can see her car. She saw the adult over on that side hunting. So the adults are over there hunting in that field and on the water. So they're around. Eagles have amazing sight, and typically when we're out there monitoring the nest, they can see us clear as day. So they have as good a vision as we do with a scope or binoculars. So they have amazing sight. They know where we are. They see us. They probably think we're some kind of weird animal that visits them once a week, or a group of us visit them once a week, and we don't bother them, so they don't really are too concerned about that. If you are interested in joining us for the 2021 season, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. Even if you have no experience, I can teach you. We do a in-depth training and teach you, and I always try to communicate with the volunteers to let them know what's going on throughout the season. So if you are interested, go to the website, contact the other coordinator in Brenna who works for the Audubon, or myself. We can get you set up with a nest. As you said, they're expanding out, so we're in need of more and more volunteers as we go. It's not a huge commitment. It's 1 hour a week out at the nest, and it's a lot of fun. It's a good experience, and if you do talk to one of our volunteers, you understand that it's an exciting process to watch them, this animal, this eagle family kind of grow up, and you get to know them very well. They do have all different personalities. I've noticed that through the years. They have their instincts, that kick in, but they also have different personalities, and there's a different dynamic. You've seen pairs that it seems like the female's always yelling at the male, or vice versa. And then there's other ones that are, just unbelievably, they've been together for a while, because they'll defend the nest well, and they know where their mate is at all times, and they coordinate very well for shift changes, which is when they change either incubating or defending the nest. They change very well. So it's an exciting process. So as I said, go onto the website, shoot me an email. I can answer any of your questions, or shoot Brenna an email. We're always looking for volunteers, and we are expanding out. If you don't live in Dane County and you live out a little ways in other counties of Wisconsin, we would gladly have you. We can work with our partners at the DNR and try to get you set up with a nest. So really appreciate that. Let me just see if okay, Carol asks, can you tell how old and big the nest is? I can typically tell if it's an older nest. There's a few nests that we have in the program that are just absolutely enormous, very deep. But I would say this is a typical size nest. They're usually large. It's hard to say for sure, because a lot of them do in the wind or in the summer, or with some conditions, they might get hit by lightning, or get a lot of snow and collapse. So it's hard to tell exactly. I can give a pretty good indication. I can usually tell when it's a first year nest. They're quite a bit smaller. I'd say it's probably, just to compare it to this nest, it might be half this size, maybe a little bit bigger than half, depending on how vigilant, how much they add. There are some pairs that are notorious, or not really notorious, but they're builders. They're always adding to the nest, and there's others that just add a little bit and move on. They don't really add too much to their nest. They'll do that, as I said, in the early seasons. This nest has actually been very productive for us. We've viewed this nest for 3 years. The first year they actually had 3 eaglets fledged, so that was exciting. And then last year they unfortunately failed because of some human interaction, human disturbances. So that was unfortunate, but we've been keeping an eye on that, making sure that that doesn't happen again. So, you know, we're learning a lot as far as what are some dangers for the eagles, and trying to protect them as best we can. So. Yeah, Sherry, that's a good question about how large the nests are. I mean, they've documented some, depending on what you consider a nest, they're one of the biggest nest builders in the bird world, especially ones that are in trees. You know, you get some of the other exotic birds, they'll build extremely large nests, but they're on the ground. So they are definitely one of the biggest nests in the bird world in a tree. They can get, they can get across, I think it's about 8 feet, 9 feet across. So some of these are pretty large. They have to be, as you can see, this eaglet's pretty big. If they had 3, it gets a little tight in there. So that's a great point. And they get deep. I know of one that we have in the program that's it has to be at least close to 8 feet deep. It's just enormously deep, and this pair continues to add on it. Hopefully, if and when it collapses, it's during the off season, and not when it's they're in mid-season, because they do sometimes collapse. I think I see. Oh, that's a vulture. There's a vulture overhead. I thought it was an eagle. Let me just double check that. Yeah, that looks like a vulture. Well, I thought one of the adults was going to come in, but unfortunately it doesn't look like it. So I'm going to sign off now. Highly appreciate you guys viewing the live stream. Hopefully you really liked it. We're going to try to do this more and more throughout the season next year, and kind of give you a taste of what we're seeing out there. And again, thank you for watching the live broadcast. Again, if you're interested in the watch, let me know, or view the website. And also, get out there. It's a beautiful day. Enjoy nature, because it's definitely been a tough time for us, but the bald eagles and all the birds, they're out doing their thing, and it's very exciting. So thank you, and hope to see you in the future.